Hey guys, happy Friday. So, Cosmic Skeptic just put out a video finally explaining why he no longer can be vegan. So, this is going to be, I'm sure, really interesting. I'm sure, all the people that jumped the gun, all the vegans that jumped the gun and started to judge Alex will be proven wrong by his spectacular, extraordinary evidence for why he's no longer vegan and he's going to go back to harming animals. So, let's hear it.
So as you can imagine, the past couple of weeks have not been particularly easy for me, but of course this is something that I expected. When I made my community post announcement about consuming animal products,
I'm
I
so sorry,
expected that there
Alex.
would be a great deal of sadness and disappointment and
Again, Alex, are you the victim here? Or are the animals the victim here?
I'm basically just trying not to sensationalize this. I recognize that this kind of video can cause a lot of drama, bring a lot of attention, a lot of negative attention to the vegan movement, to animal advocacy. That's really something I'm trying to avoid. I've been thinking a lot about how best to approach this whilst doing the least harm to animals and the least harm to the vegan movement as a whole. I'm still not entirely sure what that looks like. Of course, ideally, you would have wanted me to just stay totally plant-based, but I'm hoping to explain some of the reasons why I didn't do that. But
So why not just stay plant-based then? Why not just stay vegan? Making that community post that was totally, obscure and not very specific at all, of course is going to go and do more harm than good. I mean, what good is actually going to come of it? Only enabling people to continue harming animals. That's all it's going to that's all it's going to do. And all the people that come out to defend you are mostly non-vegans who love to hear that you couldn't maintain it, because then that means that they don't even have to try it.
my problem is not with the idea that every nutrient that's required to be healthy can be found in a plant-based diet. I think that it can. My problem is with the practicability of maintaining it for myself. So people have been asking, well, what's this magical nutrient that you can only get from an animal product that you can't get from plants? I want to clarify from the start, there isn't one. Every nutrient that you need to be healthy can be found in an adequately planned plant-based diet. I just want to talk to you about some of the reasons why I found it very difficult to maintain a healthy plant-based diet. I also want to clarify that I really don't know what my diet's going to look like going forwards. I don't know if I'll continue to eat these foods or whether I'll be able to abandon them again in the future. I really don't know. So I'm not trying to do an ex-vegan, anti-vegan thing. I'm not trying to come out and say, veganism did this to me, I had a horrible experience, and this is why you shouldn't.
You're just going to say that I have to eat animal products to feel better again, which is what every anti-vegan, ex-vegan ends up saying, is that they need it for their health. Even though you even admit that there's no magical nutrient that's found in animal products, but apparently it is, because that's what you need to be healthy.
Be vegan. Like, I still want to encourage people to be vegan. I still want to encourage people, of course, to care about animal suffering and to help bring about the end of factory farming. Like, the fact of the matter is,
Once again, the end of factory farming. That's not the issue, Alex. It's not factory farming. Factory farming is an abomination. Yes, of course. It's beside the point, though. That just makes it an extra evil, because it's not about just factory farming, because that makes you totally sound like a welfarist. That totally puts you in the group of Peter Singer and the like, who go and think that we should be pushing for better conditions and these kind of things, rather than the abolition of animal exploitation. It's very frustrating, because it's never about the killing, the act of killing, the violence that we bestow onto the animals. It's always to him about factory farming and the conditions. So if the conditions were right, you would do it. It's like, I'm sorry, but I can't help but think that like, if you were in like Nazi Germany back in the day, like, where would you have stood? Would you have said that the conditions that the Nazis put their victims in, that's what was atrocious and we need to abolish that? But you still would have supported the act of killing them? Because yes, the conditions that they were put in made it more evil, but it doesn't matter how you treat them beforehand. It always was going to be an evil act to take their life. I know these are humans that I'm talking about, and these are just animals. It's like, but the mindset, the mentality is still the same, which is if we can find a good way to do it, it'll make it ethical. It's like, no, an actual real vegan and animal rights activist would say that there is no good way. And yes, you would look at factory farm footage and say, wow, this is horrible, and it's very moving, and that's if I had video footage 200 years ago and I was trying to go and push for the abolition of slavery, human slavery, I would have showed people, slaves being whipped, because that would be very useful, and like a moving thing. But even without the whipping, slavery is in itself an evil act. It's inherently evil at its core because of the act of enslaving and taking someone's bodily autonomy away. So it's not about the whippings, it's not about the horrible conditions that they're in, it's also the act of just killing them and funding slaughterhouses and funding the idea that animals are here for us to use and do anything we want to, as long as we get a benefit from.
I still think animal suffering matters greatly. I still want to see the end of factory farming as soon as possible. All that happened was, in practice, in my life, I found it difficult to maintain a healthy plant-based diet. That's it, really. I understand why that would annoy.
It's like, I want to see the end of factory farming, but I'm no doubt still supporting it when you don't have to. I don't buy it. People will make the comparison that it's like how you want to see the end of fossil fuel usage, but they still drive cars. Luckily, no one has to have their head chopped off every time we drive a car. It's just a little bit damaging to the environment. The difference here is that there's animals that are literally being tortured and killed for your decisions, and you have this other option that doesn't involve that. Once again, if you had an option to go and drive a car that used gas, or another option that did involve gas, and you knew that every time you drove and used gas you were killing someone, whether that be an animal or a human, I'd say you should probably choose the option that makes it so that you don't kill sentient beings. It's not too hard to understand.
Annoy people or upset people, especially given that I'm somebody with a public platform. But that's what this breaks down to. Now, for most of my life, I've had a particular set of health issues, just like most people have some health issues that, I must stress, are unrelated to veganism. They're not caused by veganism. I had them before I was vegan. It's nothing like that. But, for instance, one of the most important or relevant here is IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome, which people have to varying degrees. I've suffered with it quite severely for most of my life. It's not been as bad as I've been getting older. But it essentially translates to having some severe stomach problems, as well as, I don't really know how to put it, but you need to make sure you have access to a toilet. But the problem is that, of course, when there was something I needed to be doing, so if I was giving a talk or a debate, or even if I was attending a lecture or a debate or something like that, or indeed if I was just hanging out with friends in a place that didn't have a toilet access, if we were just going for a picnic or like hanging out by the river or something, I knew that if I was going to eat something and then go to these things, there was a good chance that I was going to run into quite a bit of trouble. And so what I would do is have a very restricted relationship to food in these instances. It meant essentially not eating, or eating very minimally and safely whenever I was in one of these circumstances. So sometimes, we'd be out and people would be getting food, and people would notice that I'm not really eating anything or not finishing a meal that was in front of me, or being really picky with my food. And a lot of the time I'd have to politely decline to eat various foods because I was just so worried that it was going to set off a reaction in my stomach. And one of the worst things about it is that it was quite unpredictable. I never knew when the stomach was going to flare up.
So the solution must be to eat animal products? That's going to make it better? I don't understand why eating animal products would somehow make your symptoms go away. I don't understand.
Sometimes I'd be able to eat and be fine, but I didn't want to run that risk. And so in any of these kind of circumstances, I'd be restricting my eating very greatly. And this is something that I did before I was vegan as well, so I was well adjusted to it. But essentially, if I was going out and doing something, like if I was going out to a field somewhere, or if I was going to give a talk, I just wouldn't really eat, or I'd eat very minimally, and I'd eat very safe foods that obviously weren't particularly nutritionally adequate, but would help me to get some calories in. And then hopefully after I'd finished whatever it was I was doing, we'd go somewhere more suitable and I'd be able to eat more food. Now, this clearly isn't ideal, right? Like, this isn't
Yeah, I would, what's wrong with doing that? I would do the same thing if I was going somewhere and they didn't have any options or something. I would just go and either pack something beforehand because, I have a brain and I can actually go and foresee things in the future, or just go without the food and then leave and go get some food. Yeah, it might be a little inconvenient for you, but it's a little bit more inconvenient for the animals having a knife stabbed in their throat. So it doesn't really cut it for me. It's like, if it was inconvenient to do that, then that would just make it all the more important to prepare beforehand so that doesn't happen anymore.
A particularly healthy way to live, but it was essentially a choice between that or just turning down all of these opportunities and not doing any of these things. I'm well aware of the fact that every nutrient we need to be healthy can be found on an adequately planned vegan diet.
I'm just not going to plan
My
it
problem
correctly.
is with the practicability of this. You can imagine in a situation like the one I've just described how it can be difficult even to make sure you're getting the right amount of calories, let alone making sure that you're on top of your macro and your micronutrient balance. Now, it's important to stress that I don't have any health problems, at least to my knowledge, that are caused by veganism, right? Like the IBS thing, I'm not saying that veganism causes this. And of course, even if somebody's a non-vegan, living in this way is not the healthiest way to live. You're still going to run into problems if you're not eating for a whole day and only eat like a couple of meals or one meal in the evening when you get the opportunity. But because of the fact that it is easier to get the nutrients that are required to be healthy on a non-vegan diet, which, say what you like about it being easy to live healthily as a vegan, which I believe in many cases it can be and is, it is easier to not be one. I found that in practice, despite obviously having a lot invested in this.
So you just said right there that it's a lot easier to be a non-vegan than to be a vegan. It's like, yeah, of course it's easier because everywhere you look, there's severed animal parts over here and over there on every corner. Or apparently in the fields that you're hanging out in with your picnicking. I don't even know. It's like he's either out in these far distant lands where they don't have any vegan food apparently, or he's with his friends in fields where he's not close to a bathroom. Like, it doesn't even make sense. It's like, I'm sure all these places that he's going to give lectures or debates are in like, some buildings that are probably like in small towns or cities at least, right? Like, they're not going to just be out in random fields. And every single one of these facilities has a bathroom, so it's not like you couldn't excuse yourself or something if you had to. It's like, so I'm just confused though. This is the extraordinary evidence that requires the extraordinary suffering that you're going to cause now? I'm not seeing it. And this is why I didn't really need to wait for a video to come out to lay into them, because there is no excuse that will ever be justified to go and start harming animals again. Like, if I started having an issue, I would go and seek help. I'd go to my doctor, and if my doctor isn't going to give me a plant-based solution, then I would go elsewhere. But nowhere in this video does he mention going to see a nutritionist or even seeing a doctor. Like, there's like nothing. Is he just self-diagnosing all of his issues? And I'd love to know, like, what you eat a fish or you ate a chicken wing or something, and that is gonna cure your IBS. I don't get it. Like, just make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and eat that.
But look, there were days when I would be eating 0 calories, and periods where daily I'd maybe be eating between like 0 and 700 calories. Up experiencing a lot of the typical symptoms that you hear in these kinds of videos. So these are the typical things that you hear about. I was experiencing fatigue, but at the
you're experiencing fatigue because you only had 0 to 700 calories a day. Yeah, anyone's gonna be fatigued. You gotta eat something, dude. You gotta eat something. Anybody that eats only 700 calories or 0 is gonna have these symptoms. So don't try to lay it on veganism if that's what he's trying to do here, because it's like It's not. It's to do with you not eating because you aren't fixing your IBS problem. And again, I know nothing about IBS. I don't know the first thing about it, but I'm pretty sure you could go and find solutions that don't involve stabbing innocent beings.
Same time as insomnia, I just wasn't sleeping properly. I was experiencing brain fog. I was unable to properly focus. I was feeling.
Yeah, you can't focus because you're not eating anything. Guess what? I can't focus either when I'm freaking starving. Guess when I have problems sleeping, when I'm going to bed hungry. You got to eat something, dude. You can't just not eat.
Physically weak. But I was also experiencing other commonly reported symptoms. I was having, a lot of bloating and a lot of gas, like a lot of gas. I was experiencing joint pain. I was experiencing.
Oh my god, he had gas? Oh my god, that is horrible. Gas? Wow, I need to go start stabbing innocent beings because I had gas.
Kinds of things that I found it very difficult to know what was being caused by my diet. And crucially, as I say, this isn't something that's caused by veganism. It's not caused by a vegan diet. It would have been caused, if it was caused by my diet, by the way that I was doing this vegan diet. But also
Yeah, exactly. So you even admit, again, that you weren't doing it properly. So instead of doing it properly or going to try to seek help, you've just gone back to harming animals again. Like, how is this any different than every other non-vegan, not non-vegan, but not anti-vegan, ex-vegan video where everybody just claims these health problems and they never really get like test results. They never go and get like an expert opinion. It's always the same thing where it's just, oh, I felt this way, I'm gonna listen to my body, and now I'm gonna start eating some dead animal again. It's like, what? What?
There's something that I mean, I don't want to mention it, but I mean, I want to mention it in this context, which is that there have been various things that have happened in my personal life that at points have led to something of a mental health crisis. I don't really know what to say here because I'm sorry, but I'm just not going to give you the details about that.
You don't need to give the details because it doesn't really matter what the mental health problem is. That could be like a reason why you end up doing something, but it's still not an excuse. Just like anybody that has a mental health problem and then they go and they kill human beings. It's like, oh, that might, give some credence to why they did it, but it still doesn't excuse the act of like murder. And it's like, it doesn't really matter to me if you had mental health problems, because having mental health problems doesn't justify knowingly and wantonly killing animals.
And it gets to a point where you think, look, I'm just going to have to get myself out of this hole somehow. And one of the most important first steps is physical health. But being essentially unable to eat, I found that if I could stomach anything, I wanted it to be nutritionally dense. I wanted it to be something that was going to give me the best chance of improving my physical health. So look, I'm really not trying to make this some kind of sob story.
Oh, I'm sure you're not trying to make a sob story. It's just like, I need to eat nutrient-dense food. See, that's the difference, though, is that now that I'm vegan, I don't see animals as food. It's not even an option. The only food there is are plant-based foods. That's how it works. Like I don't see a dog as food any more than I see a pig or a chicken or a fish or an elephant or a dolphin as food. I see a fish swimming and I think it's just like a turtle. It doesn't even come to my mind to harm them again. It's like the fact that he sees these animals as beings that could be eaten. It's like that once again goes to the mindset that you think that it's just okay to harm them again. And it's like if you were truly vegan, which he was, I guess maybe in some regards, I don't know. It's kind of tough to say because at the end of the day, like, you don't really believe in animal rights and you don't mind killing animals for food. He's flat out saying that, he needs nutrient-dense food, which are animals to him, apparently. Or seafood, maybe, which, once again, are fish. They're not seafood.
I mean, it's impossible to do that, I guess, without giving you all of the details. It's really difficult to to find a balance here between trying to talk about my experience whilst trying not to make it just sound like I'm making a bunch of excuses and trying to make you feel sorry for me. I must say that I'm not going to be able to give you all of the details of certainly the mental health stuff that I was talking about. I know that people are upset and people are angry, but the amount of vitriol that I've received, I've seen people just obviously the constant DMing and the comments and people making memes and this kind of thing. And
It's like, I don't want to make it a sob story. And then he immediately goes on to talk about how people are making fun of him and stuff, as they should, I think, because what he's doing is laughable. It's like, no, you want to not have it be a sob story, but also want it to be a sob story. And then he goes and he posts comments up on his video of all the mean comments that he got, which, yeah, maybe some of them went too far or something, but you want to talk about going too far. I mean, all you need to do is look at any comment section. Anytime a dog gets killed by a human, they purposely killed a dog. Oh my God, it's just as hateful as the hate that he's getting. You know, people don't actually have a problem with throwing hate to people that do bad things. They just hate that it's being used against a human to defend animals. It's just funny, you know. Hey, let's go take a look at the comments of a video where a vegan protester got ran over by a truck, and let's see literally like thousands and thousands of people that are all laughing at her dying because they think it's funny. Oh yeah, them actually laughing at literal death. Oh yeah, that's fine. Once again, that gets a total pass because some people, you know, made a comment about you. You know, it's like that vegan teacher said that you should be hung. Like, that's horrible. But once again, isn't that totally in alignment with what all non-vegans say about vegans? Like, it's not just a vegan thing, it's a human thing. Humans say these things. It's not just vegans that say these things. All humans wish bad things on people that are doing bad things. So that was his response, and yeah, I didn't hear anything that was really particularly compelling as to why he should be harming animals. There's no mention of a nutritionist or a doctor being sought out. There was little to none discussion about the animals that he's now eating and harming. Alex isn't like a bad person for doing this. He's just doing something that is bad and to me isn't justified at all. You know, just because he has an upset stomach or something. I'm sorry, but that's not extraordinary evidence for why you're now extraordinarily harming animals. It's just not.